Hi, I'm Maya. I built the company, signed the deals, even helped my sister save her marriage. But somehow I became the threat, the one they spied on, erased, and called not even blood, all while smiling across the table. It started with a whisper from my niece and ended with them on their knees, begging, "You want to know how we got there? Let's begin. Before we dive in, what time are you listening and where from? Drop a comment below. I read everyone." It was a Monday morning like any other, except it wasn't. Not really. I pulled into the parking garage under the downtown building Grant and I partly owned, Veller and Dorn Capital. My name was on the door, but some mornings it felt like I was still sneaking in the back. San Diego's sun shone bright, but there was a bite in the air, a kind of chill that didn't belong. I zipped my jacket higher as I stepped out of the car, heels clicking against concrete, and tried to shake off that gnawing feeling that had been nesting in me for weeks now. Something wasn't right. 2 weeks until our engagement party. Grant had said he wanted something simple but elegant. That's rich, coming from a man who thought charcuterie needed its own staff. Still, I played along. I always did. It wasn't about the party, it was about the illusion. Everything with Grant had become that lately, just enough warmth to keep you from questioning the cold. The elevator ride to the 12th floor was quiet. I checked my phone. No missed calls, no emails flagged red. Just a text from Ava. Ava Dorn. "I'm in your office. Please don't tell Mom." I frowned. It was a school day. Why would Seraphine's 16-year-old be in my office, let alone skipping class? I quickened my pace the moment I stepped off the elevator. The front desk was empty. Liza must have been running late again. I unlocked my office and pushed the door open. Ava sat on the leather couch, knees tucked under her, eyes wide, and pale like she hadn't slept in days. "Ava?" I shut the door behind me. "Sweetheart, what's going on?" She stood up slowly. "You're not safe in here." The words punched the breath from my lungs. "What are you talking about?" She looked toward the bookshelf across from my desk. "There's a camera. In here. Hidden. I saw Uncle Grant and Mom checking it last night while you were upstairs. They didn't know I was there." My fingers turned cold. I tried not to show it. "You... sure?" Ava nodded, eyes watering but holding strong. "They were watching the feed. I heard Mom say, 'She's getting too curious. We'll handle it soon.'" I walked over to her, hugged her tightly. "Thank you for telling me. You did the right thing." She pulled away. "I didn't know who else to tell. Mom will kill me if she finds out I was here." "You leave that to me," I said quietly, pulling out my phone to order her a ride-share home. I didn't want her caught in the middle any more than she already was. Once she left, I sat at my desk. I didn't move for a full minute. Then slowly I scanned the room. My eyes landed on a black sculpture of a bird on the top shelf, a decorative piece from Bali. I'd bought it, but I'd never placed it up there. I stood, reached for it. Behind its base, a tiny black lens. I stared, not blinking, not breathing. The door creaked open behind me and I jumped. "Relax," Seraphine's voice rang out, syrupy and sharp. "Just me." She leaned against the frame, perfect in her tailored coat, holding a disposable coffee cup like it was a prop in some lifestyle blog shoot. "Ava said she was with you. She must have run off before I arrived." I didn't answer. My body was in defense mode, eyes scanning for the next move. Grant walked up behind her, holding 2 cups of espresso. One of them, mine, the one I took every Monday morning. "Busy morning already?" he asked, smiling, oblivious or pretending to be. Seraphine's smile grew wider. "You two really are made for each other. I mean, who else would understand secrets better?" The hallway went quiet. A man from accounting passed behind them, pretending not to notice the tension hanging like mist. I forced a smile, took the espresso from Grant and said nothing, just nodded. Back inside, I shut the door, locked it. Then I sat at my desk, placed the sculpture face down and opened my laptop. "If you want to play games, Grant," I whispered, "let's record everything." Outside the window, the sky had shifted. The breeze off the bay carried a bite now, and the clouds were rolling in low and fast. I stared out at them for a long time before I leaned back in my chair and exhaled through my teeth. I thought I'd known betrayal. But this was theater. Designed, rehearsed, cast with people who were supposed to love me. Seraphine had always been elegant. That kind of expensive charm people mistook for kindness. She was the sister who dazzled at every family event, who knew how to cry without smearing mascara, who could insult you with a compliment and smile while doing it. When we were kids, she'd rearrange my books to help, and then tell our parents I'd lost their borrowed money when she was the one who took it, and they believed her. Always. She told everyone I missed Dad's retirement dinner on purpose, knowing full well she'd sent the wrong date in the group chat. When I donated to Mom's breast cancer fund in college, it was Seraphine who told the family she'd made the anonymous gift. I remember smiling through the lie. I remember the burn of it, too. I opened my phone. Another message from Ava. Ava, I found this in Mom's drawer. It has your name on it. A photo of a USB drive. No label, but unmistakably the sleek black Kingston I used to carry back in 2018, one I'd lost years ago. Or thought I had. Me. Is it safe for you to bring it? Ava. I'll drop it in your lobby. I told the front desk I'm picking up a flyer. An hour later, I was back at my apartment, keys jangling in my hand as I climbed the narrow stairs to my second-floor walk-up. A flash drive was waiting for me at the front desk in a sealed envelope. No name, just my apartment number in Ava's rounded print. I tipped the building manager $20 and pretended it was a thank you for holding packages. Once inside, I locked the door, shut the blinds, and turned off every overhead light except the one above the kitchen island. My hands were steadier now. The fear hadn't vanished, just focused. I slid the flash drive into my personal laptop. Inside were 3 folders. Folder 1, Project V. Folder 2, Maya Dorn, Phase-Out Plan. Folder 3, Red Flag Reports. I opened the second folder first, dozens of PDFs. Performance reviews I'd never seen, all unsigned but dated and formatted like internal evaluations. Claims I missed meetings, that I had erratic behavior. Screenshots of email threads I'd supposedly sent, sloppily edited to include phrases I'd never use. One showed a message to a client containing confidential data I never accessed. Another had my signature on a cancellation I didn't authorize. And there were images. A photo of me supposedly drunk at a work dinner, except I hadn't touched a drop that night. Another showed me crying in the stairwell, except that image had been pulled from years ago during my aunt's funeral. They dug deep. I closed the laptop. My stomach flipped. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't even an impulsive act. This was strategy. They weren't just watching me, they were erasing me. Erasing my voice, my presence, my credibility, carefully, methodically, just enough to suggest that maybe Maya Dorn was unstable, that maybe she wasn't cut out for ownership, and with a few more staged missteps, I'd be out, discredited, isolated, alone. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in months. Uncle Marcus? I asked, my voice low. Maya, his voice cracked like dry earth, calm but curious. You all right? I need to ask something, hypothetically. Okay. If someone was trying to build a digital case, fake screenshots, performance logs, emails, is there a way to reverse it? Prove it's doctored? He paused. If you catch it early enough, yes. Depends on how they handled metadata. Did they layer edits over raw files? Resave things? If they scrubbed timestamps, it gets harder, but it's possible. Only if I move fast? Exactly. Time's ticking. You only get one shot to catch this kind of thing while it's still warm. Thanks, I said. That's all I needed to know. I hung up. Then I stood. I pulled 2 documents from my safe drawer. Grant's co-ownership agreement and Seraphine's contract, the one that made her a consultant under my name with full access to our PR division. I laid them both on the counter under the kitchen light. You've been playing chess against someone who never wanted the crown, I said aloud, my voice steady now. That's about to change. I placed the flash drive in my fireproof lockbox, then grabbed my laptop again. A few clicks later, I booked a one-way ticket to Chicago. I wasn't running. I was repositioning. The train pulled into Union Station under a blanket of gray clouds that pressed low against the skyline, as if Chicago itself were exhaling slowly. I stepped onto the platform in the same beige wool coat I wore to my father's funeral. I hadn't realized that until the wind hit me, a cold, remembering wind, and the collar brushed against my jaw in that familiar way. 3 days had passed since I left San Diego. Not a word to Grant. No replies to Seraphine's carefully polished voicemails. And strangely, no pressure. It was as if they already thought I was gone. The Uber driver said nothing the whole ride to the house, just the soft jazz station humming low and the occasional turn signal clicking through quiet intersections. When we pulled up to the family home, I had to blink hard to process how little had changed. Same perfectly trimmed hedge, same gold wreath on the front door, same windows, like eyes that never blinked. I walked up the stone steps slowly, one hand gripping my overnight bag, the other already curled into a fist in my pocket. The door opened before I knocked. My mother stood there, hair in its usual soft twist, lips pressed into a line that wasn't quite a smile. Her eyes flicked from my face to my suitcase. "Oh," she said flatly, "we didn't expect you to come without Grant." I didn't answer. I stepped past her into the house. The air inside was warm but smelled faintly of lemon polish and something more ancient, like old books sealed too long. I dropped my bag by the stairs and made my way toward the study. I hadn't stepped into that room in years. It used to be my father's sanctuary. Rich wood shelves lined with leather-bound tax codes, a worn globe in the corner, and that desk, the one he kept locked with a brass key only he wore on a chain under his shirt. It was unlocked now. I sat down slowly and pulled open the bottom drawer. That's where I saw it. A red folder, crisp, too new to be forgotten. The label read in my father's unmistakable blocky script, "Trust Addendum, Maya only." My breath caught. Inside were several sheets, all notarized, an amendment naming me sole inheritor of a La Jolla property, and a cash disbursement to be disclosed upon legal union. It was dated 1 month before Dad's heart attack, but it was never filed, never executed. And Seraphine? She was the one who handled everything after his death. All the paperwork, all the filings, all the decisions. A tightness gripped the base of my neck. This wasn't just neglect, this was obstruction. They didn't just try to write me out now, they'd started years ago. I stayed there, unmoving, until my mother called from the hallway. "We're having dinner tonight. Seraphine's joining. Try not to make it uncomfortable." Dinner was set like a magazine spread, crystal glasses, gold-rimmed plates, cloth napkins folded into lilies. My seat was directly across from Seraphine's, as if this had been arranged by some stage director with a cruel sense of irony. She swept in like she always did, smooth, composed, too polished to be questioned. "Sister," she said sweetly, leaning in to air-kiss my cheek, "you look centered." I gave her a tight smile. "I am." The meal passed in uneasy clinks and spoonfuls of silence. Mom played hostess, recounting neighborhood gossip. Seraphine offered updates on her work with Grant's firm, how they'd landed a new contract with a boutique venture group. Then came the ambush. Mom dabbed her lips delicately with her napkin and said, "We're proud of what Seraphine and Grant are building. It's exactly what your father wanted. A family-led business. Legacy." I put down my fork. "Funny," I said quietly, meeting Seraphine's eyes, "because Dad left something that says otherwise." The smile slipped from her face. Just a flicker. But it was enough. Her fingers curled under the table. Her posture stiffened just a fraction. No one said anything else for the rest of the meal. Later that night, I was in the guest room, once my old bedroom, when I heard a soft knock. Ava stepped in without waiting. She looked pale, her oversized hoodie swallowing her frame. "Auntie," she whispered, glancing back toward the hallway. Seraphine knew about that file. I heard her on the phone with Grant once. She said she was securing the will. I didn't know what that meant back then. I nodded, not trusting my voice. She hesitated, then added, I think they're scared of you. After she left, I sat alone on the edge of the bed, red folder in my lap. I remembered the last time Dad spoke to me alone. In the hospital, after a minor procedure that turned out to be a precursor to worse things, he held my hand and said, You see the angles others pretend not to. That's why you'll build something greater than all of us. But no one ever quoted that at the funeral. No one ever repeated it like they did Seraphine's speeches and carefully curated memories. I held the folder tighter, not out of sentiment, but because it was proof. A footprint in wet cement. They tried to wipe me out, and they nearly succeeded. I stared at the ceiling for a long while, listening to the creak of the old furnace. Then I reached for my phone and scrolled to a name I hadn't touched in years, the one person who hated Seraphine more than I ever admitted. I pressed call. Hi, I said when they answered. It's Maya. I think I'm ready to talk about your offer. 2 days after I made that call, I found myself standing in the glass lobby of Grant's office building in downtown Chicago. The polished floors gleamed like ice under my boots, and the light filtering through the tall windows was pale and gray, just enough to cast shadows but not warmth. I told the receptionist I was just dropping something off. She nodded, didn't ask for an appointment. No one questioned me. Funny how confidently people open doors when you look like you belong. I clutched the padded envelope in my left hand, but it wasn't what mattered. What mattered was the recorder in my right coat pocket. I wasn't here to confront. I was here to collect. While I waited near the elevator bay, a soft humming noise buzzed above, some kind of white noise generator, meant to ensure privacy, I assumed, but it didn't drown out everything. I stepped slightly toward the corridor just past the coffee alcove and stood near the frosted glass that lined the hallway. And then I heard them. Grant's voice, too relaxed, too smug. She's not even blood. She was a financial convenience. Your dad's guilt project. I'm cleaning it up. My thumb tapped the side of my phone. The recording app began capturing every word. There was a pause, and then Seraphine answered, her voice low and calculated. I told you, once the audit clears, we'll redirect the account and move forward. She won't know until it's finalized. Redirect the account? I backed away slowly, heart pounding, not from fear, but from the realization of just how far they were willing to go. They weren't just trying to steal from me. They were rewriting my origin story, deleting me at the root. I left the building without saying a word, just nodded politely to the same receptionist and stepped out into the sharp, late-morning air. The city smelled like damp pavement and roasted coffee, but I barely noticed. My legs moved on autopilot, carrying me toward the parking structure across the street. The car was cold when I slid into the seat. My breath fogged up the windshield in short, quick bursts. I sat there, hands on the wheel, but didn't start the engine. Instead, I thought about Ava. 3 nights ago, she'd curled up next to me on the guest bed and whispered, "Why do they say you're not really a Dorn? Isn't Grandpa your dad, too?" At the time, I thought she'd misheard something. Now I wasn't so sure. A memory I hadn't touched in decades rose like smoke. I was maybe 10, standing in the hallway outside the kitchen. My parents thought I was asleep. My father's voice was raised, fierce, protective. "Don't ever call her just a tax decision again." Then the slam of a door. Silence. I had forgotten that, or maybe I forced myself to. The weight of it pressed on my chest like a slab of cold stone. I looked down and saw my reflection in the windshield, pale, hollow, but something deeper stared back. "They're not just cutting me out," I whispered. "They're erasing me." I reached into the glove compartment and pulled out the pen Dad gave me when I passed the bar exam. I'd almost forgotten I'd tucked it there, engraved with my full name in gold, Maya Dorn. My grip tightened around it. I could feel the metal's chill warming in my hand. That name meant something, not just sentiment. It was legal. It was legacy, and they were trying to burn it to the ground. I pulled out my phone and called Kennedy, an old law school friend who now handled estate disputes out of Boston. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey, stranger," she said, surprised. "I need a favor," I replied. "Fast one." "What kind?" "If someone tried to quietly amend a trust, or challenge someone's legal identity based on bloodline, what are my rights?" There was a pause. Then her tone shifted, sharper, professional. "Maya, is there a camera in the office?" My stomach turned. "Why?" "Because if you're asking me that, you're either already inside the fire or about to set one. And if there's a camera, start treating every hallway like a deposition. Nothing's off record now." I said nothing. Just listened to the static hum between us. "There is now," I finally replied. Kennedy's voice lowered. "Then move fast, because people who play dirty don't wait for the law to catch up." After the call, I sat there for another 5 minutes, just breathing, letting it sink in. Then I reached over and opened the center console. I placed the pen inside, alongside the flash drive and a printed copy of the trust amendment I'd found in Dad's study. The pieces were coming together. But I was done playing quiet. I started the engine and pulled out of the lot, tires crunching slightly over the damp asphalt. In the rearview mirror, Grant's tower loomed, glass and steel and ego. I glanced back at it one more time. "You wanted to erase me quietly," I murmured. "Let's make it loud." By the time I got back to my apartment, the rain had started. Not a downpour, just that steady, insistent drizzle that finds its rhythm against windows and refuses to let go. The kind of weather that seeps into your bones and makes even silence sound heavy. I dropped my bag by the door and kicked off my shoes without looking. The apartment was dim, only the soft orange glow from the kitchen under cabinet lights keeping the darkness from swallowing everything. I didn't turn on the lamps, didn't need them. The weight I carried lit enough. The couch creaked as I sat down, slowly, like my body had aged 10 years in one day. I opened the audio file again. Grant's voice played first. Calm, cruel. "She's not even blood. She was a financial convenience, your dad's guilt project." I let it play again, and again, and again. Each time, something in me pulled tighter, like a wire winding around my ribs. The coffee I'd brewed earlier still sat on the side table, untouched, cold. I reached for it, took a sip, winced, then set it back down. My phone buzzed next to me. I grabbed it, already knowing who it was. Kennedy. I answered on speaker and laid the phone on my lap. "They filed it, Maya." My throat closed. "They've submitted a petition to amend the trust," she said. "They're claiming you were adopted privately, no legal paperwork, listed as a non-lineal descendant." I didn't say anything. "If that petition is accepted," Kennedy continued, "you lose access to everything your father left." There it was. Not just betrayal, not just theft. Erasure. I let the silence hang between us, then finally whispered, "How long do I have?" "They fast-tracked it. You've got a week, maybe less if they get aggressive." I ended the call without goodbye. For a while, I sat staring at the flickering streetlights reflecting off wet pavement through my living room window. I couldn't move, couldn't cry, couldn't feel anything except the familiar knot of something hollow just under my ribs, until a knock tapped at the door. I wiped my face with the sleeve of my sweater, not even realizing tears had fallen, and pulled it open. Ava stood there, holding a book against her chest. I forgot my charger in your room," she said softly. I nodded, stepped aside, let her walk past. She paused near the hallway. "Are you coming to Seraphine's brunch tomorrow?" she asked, eyes wide with something like hope, or maybe just routine. I didn't mean to snap. "No, and neither should you." Her face crumpled, just for a second. Then she turned and rushed down the hall to her room without a word. I stood frozen. The guilt came in hard, like a blow to the sternum. That wasn't her fault. None of this was her fault. I sank to the floor, Back against the front door, knees pulled to my chest. The apartment was too quiet. My own breath sounded foreign. I stayed there a long time, curled into the silence, until I heard a knock. Soft, hesitant. The door cracked open again, just a little. It was Mrs. Bloom. She lived one floor below, widowed, kept to herself but always nodded in the hallway like she knew more than she let on. "I thought I heard something," she said gently, holding a small covered pot in her hands. "Didn't want to be nosy, but soup always helps." I stood and took it with both hands. It was warm, steady. She touched my arm before turning. "Your mama would be ashamed of them, but proud of you, Maya." Then she was gone. I stood there holding that pot like it was a lifeline. Later I sat at the kitchen table, the light above me humming faintly. I didn't eat the soup yet. I just stared across the room until I noticed the top drawer on the bookshelf still slightly open. I pulled it fully and reached inside. My fingers found a small velvet box. Inside were my father's cufflinks, the silver ones shaped like anchors. He wore them to every board meeting, even the ones where he knew they'd vote him down. He used to joke, "If they see the anchor, they know I'm staying put." I held them tightly, pressed them against my chest, and for the first time in days I looked up. In the reflection of the glass window, I didn't see a woman unraveling. I saw something more dangerous. I saw stillness that wasn't broken. It was waiting. I picked up my phone and texted Kennedy. "Start drafting. If they want to test bloodlines and legacy, they'll get both." Then I whispered into the dark of my apartment, to no one and everyone all at once. "I won't let them rewrite me." The morning came slow and gray, dragging with it a kind of wind that felt like it could peel paint off a building. I stood by my window for a long while, sipping black coffee and watching the skyline blur behind drifting mist. My reflection stared back at me, calm, composed, but colder than I remembered. 2 days had passed since I told Kennedy to start drafting. In that time, I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't panicked. I'd just gathered. And now it was time to walk back into the house I'd helped build, only to watch them try to paint over my name. The Dorn Foundation office sat in the heart of downtown, all glass and steel, the kind of place meant to feel untouchable. As I stepped through the revolving doors, I paused to glance at the new name etched along the entryway in gold leaf: Seraphine Dorn, Executive Director. A hollow laugh almost escaped me. Ava had made eggs this morning, quietly, just left the plate near me with a folded napkin. She didn't say anything, and I didn't either, but she watched me from the hallway, biting her thumbnail, the way kids do when they know the adults are at war. Inside the lobby, my heels echoed like a metronome through marble silence. The receptionist nodded too politely. Behind me, Kennedy walked in, calm in her trench coat, briefcase in hand. We took the elevator in silence. 6th floor, the glass conference room where I used to lead donor calls looked more like a set piece now. At the far end sat Seraphine in a fitted navy suit, smiling as though she'd already won. Beside her, a thin man in a tailored gray blazer barely looked up from his leather folio. Kennedy and I didn't sit right away. "Let's not waste time," Seraphine said smoothly. "We'd like to resolve this quietly. Maya can walk away with a very generous severance, and no damage needs to be done, publicly at least." Kennedy raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. Seraphine's lawyer smiled like a coyote in silk. "It's in everyone's best interest. Family harmony, reputation, clean transition." I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out the small velvet pouch I'd carried with me since Chapter 5. I laid my father's cufflinks gently on the table. Seraphine blinked. A flicker. Then I slid an envelope across the table. Kennedy leaned in. "Declaration from board member Marcus Adele. He confirms Ms. Dorn threatened him with removal if he disclosed irregularities in charitable accounting." The lawyer went still. "Also included," I added, "screenshots of Seraphine forwarding manipulated internal audits under my credentials, fabrications used to justify this little severance package." Seraphine's mouth twitched. "You think "You think this changes anything?" she said, her voice too high now. "This is your word against ours." "No," I interrupted quietly. "But the footage from the filing room last April will." Silence. Kennedy folded her hands. "As of this morning, the audit trail is sealed and time-stamped. We've pre-notified 3 key donors. Any attempt to move foundation funds now triggers auto-notification to federal review." Seraphine pushed her chair back, face pale. The lawyer leaned toward her, whispering something sharp. But I didn't care. Marcus entered the room quietly then. Older, silver hair swept back, eyes tired but firm. He didn't say a word as he walked over and gently pushed the cufflinks back toward me. "Your father never wanted that name on the glass," he said. Just that. Then he turned and left. No drama, no yelling. Just the truth dropped like stone into water. Kennedy and I stood to leave. I didn't touch the cufflinks. I just picked up the USB drive we'd come for and tucked it into my coat pocket. As I stepped out of the room, I paused in the doorway, glanced back once. Seraphine looked like she'd been hit with wind she couldn't block, still seated, eyes wide but lips sealed for once. I said it low, without venom, just a statement of fact. This was me being polite. The words had barely left my mouth. This was me being polite. When the elevator doors closed behind me, I didn't look back. I didn't need to. That night, I slept for 6 uninterrupted hours, the longest stretch in months. When I woke, I didn't feel rested, but I felt ready. A week passed like a sharpening stone. While Seraphine scrambled behind closed doors and Kennedy worked double-time cataloging evidence, I remained quiet, not passive, strategic. Every piece was being placed, every thread pulled tight. Now it was morning again. Brisk, the kind of Chicago chill that crept down your collar no matter how tightly you wrapped your coat. I stepped out of the car in front of the Fairmont Hotel, my heels slicing into the silence like they owned the marble beneath them. No badge, no assistant, no RSVP. The valet opened the door with a nervous smile, uncertain whether to greet me or block me. He didn't dare choose wrong. I walked straight through the lobby, past the ornate floral displays and warm lighting meant to soothe egos, and into the glass ballroom packed with people in suits, people who once toasted to my ideas while privately signing their names to them. Carter stood at the podium, mid-sentence. His voice oozed the kind of faux humility you hear in polished pitch decks. And in partnership with the Dorn Foundation, we're unveiling our newest philanthropic initiative. Right on cue, Seraphine, seated front and center, crossed her legs with just enough flair to draw attention. She was wearing white. Of course she was. Queen of reinvention, every hair in place, every smile calculated. And beside her, a media team live-streamed the event, her version of truth broadcasted in high definition. I took my time approaching the stage. Carter paused, confused. The room noticed the shift. Even before I reached the stairs, murmurs had begun to stir. Seraphine leaned in toward a reporter's microphone, because of course she did, and with syrup in her voice, she said, "Some people crave relevance after it's passed them by. We hope they find peace." That was her move. Smile as she slaps you. I stepped onto the stage without breaking eye contact. Carter backed away slightly. The projector paused. The room adjusted, and then I placed a red leather folder on the podium. "I believe this proposal has my signature on it," I said, voice steady, "and so does the IRS." A gasp from the left, whispers multiplying like sparks catching dry grass. Logan, the tech COO, leaned forward awkwardly and opened the folder. His face paled with every page. Inside, certified financial records, stamped copyright registration for the initiative Carter just tried to claim, a printed complaint filed with the IRS, and the kicker, time-stamped footage showing Carter and Seraphine in the foundation office, copying my files and altering my signature on the proposal. For a moment, no one moved. Then I added simply, "You wore my blood like perfume," and smiled while doing it. Every camera turned. The reporter's eyes went wide. One assistant started whispering into her earpiece. Ava, standing quietly near the back, lifted her phone. She was already recording. Smart girl. Seraphine stood suddenly. "You're just a pathetic little orphan," she snapped, her voice no longer sweet. "You've always needed attention. That's what this is about, isn't it? You need to feel like someone." Silence. All eyes turned to her now. Her voice echoed back at her. Carter looked down. He didn't come to her defense. Logan stepped off the stage and quietly exited the room. I didn't flinch, didn't smile, didn't blink. I simply turned and walked. Each step away from the stage sounded like punctuation. I didn't rush. I didn't turn around. When I reached the glass doors at the lobby's edge, I caught a glimpse of myself in the reflection. Straight spine, clear eyes, no badge, but every ounce of power. Outside, the world hadn't changed, but inside the tectonic plates were shifting. One word at a time, one truth at a time, the doors slid shut behind me, and the media storm began. 3 days after the Fairmont fallout, I found myself seated across a long mahogany table from the people who'd tried to erase me. The conference room was stark, white walls, no windows, just overhead lights that hummed like insects. There were no cameras this time. Just witnesses, legal counsel, and cold air between us. I sat still. My palms rested flat against a leather folder. Beside me, Ava offered quiet presence, her shoulders drawn back like armor. Kennedy, as always, sat to my left, notes, timestamps, and statute codes at the ready. Seraphine was late. She always was, especially when she wanted to be perceived as important. When she finally entered, Carter trailed her. His tie was askew, and he kept rubbing his palm as if trying to erase something only he could feel. Their lawyer, a lean man with a voice that never fully closed the door on condescension, cleared his throat first. "This seems excessive," he said. "It's a family matter. We don't need scorched earth litigation over emotional misunderstandings." I didn't respond. I slid a USB drive across the table. "It's not emotion," I said, my voice level. "It's documentation." Whitmore, the arbitrator, leaned forward. "We'll begin with this." Files loaded on the screen behind him. The same ones Seraphine and Carter claimed didn't exist. Audits, email trails, video footage. Then Kennedy nodded toward the hallway. A staffer opened the door, and Logan stepped in. He looked older than he had at the Fairmont. Guilt adds years quickly. Whitmore asked, "Mr. Logan, would you explain your role in the rebranding of these documents?" Logan adjusted his collar. "I was told to replace headers, remove original file properties. It was presented to me as a cleanup effort before a major launch." "And who gave you that instruction?" He hesitated. "Seraphine." Seraphine didn't flinch, but her lawyer scribbled frantically. "I didn't know the audit trail was being manipulated," Logan added. "I assumed Maya had signed off." "You assumed wrong," Kennedy said dryly. Carter's jaw tightened. Seraphine stared ahead, her mouth flat. Then Whitmore spoke again. "Before we recess, there's another exhibit." He pulled a folder from his briefcase. "This comes from 5 separate zoning committees in the Chicago area. Community development proposals, signed under Ms. Maya Dorn." He continued. "While Ms. Seraphine was abroad during these years, the Foundation's neighborhood outreach projects were executed under Ms. Dorn's name, in person, without compensation." He placed the folder down gently. "It appears Maya didn't just inherit the name, she carried its weight." Carter leaned forward. "You can't seriously—" Whitmore raised a hand. "Mr. Layton, this is not your turn." Seraphine's face drained of color. I sat still. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't lean in or grandstand. "They made me invisible," I said, "so I chose the right channels to be seen." Ava reached into her bag. She pulled out a small framed quote. "Deliberate. Quiet." She placed it beside me, facing forward. "Truth needs no volume. Just timing." I didn't react. But inside me, the full circle hum was deafening. Seraphine once said that to mock me in college after I'd given a quiet speech at a student summit. "Try shouting next time," she'd laughed. "Truth needs volume." Now she looked like a painting left out in the rain. Whitmore looked down at his notes. Then, pausing, he asked, "Ms. Dorn, the ruling will be filed shortly. Would you prefer this decision be sealed or made public? I turned, slowly, toward the doors. On the other side of that wood and frosted glass stood a hallway full of journalists. I could almost hear their cameras ticking. I looked back at him. Let the silence speak for itself. The first breeze of dusk moved gently through the rooftop garden, brushing against the lavender and rosemary I'd planted last spring. It wasn't extravagant, just a reclaimed patio space above my West Loop apartment, but it was mine. And that night, as I sat barefoot in an old chair, holding a cup of chamomile tea, I realized how long it had been since my body wasn't clenched from the inside out. Ava walked out carrying a folded newspaper. She had that small, knowing smile again, the one she used when she was proud of me but didn't want to make it awkward. She set the paper on the low wooden table between us and tapped a headline. Sister exposes multi-million-dollar fraud within own family. Quiet hero of the housing equity crisis. I read it once, then again. They finally got my name right, I murmured. Once. I didn't smile. Instead, I leaned back, let my eyes scan the golden edge of the skyline. The city didn't look different, but I did. Or maybe for the first time I looked like myself. My phone buzzed next to the teacup. A message from Logan. I hadn't heard from him since arbitration. Logan, I was weak, but you weren't invisible. Not anymore. I read it in silence. Then I powered the screen off and turned it face down. It wasn't closure, but it was acknowledgement. Ava shifted beside me, fiddling with her sleeves. I saw another podcast posted a deep dive. Your proposals, the recordings, even the zoning board minutes. It's blowing up, all of it. I don't need to hear it, I said. Let the noise do what it needs to do. I'm done explaining. We sat like that for a while, not speaking. The light shifted from amber to soft gray. Somewhere down the block, wind chimes clinked gently, and just as I started to let the quiet settle, there was a soft knock at the iron gate at the edge of the rooftop steps. Ava rose first, peered over, then turned to me. It's Aunt Callista. My stomach tightened. Just a little. I hadn't spoken to her in years. She had always kept her distance from the drama, but she knew where the bones were buried. She stepped in gently, as if asking permission without words. I won't stay, she said softly. Just dropping something off. She reached into a cloth tote and pulled out a small white box wrapped in craft paper and twine. I didn't open it right away, just stared. There's no apology in there, Callista said. Just something that should have been yours a long time ago. Then she added, You were right to walk away. But if you ever need a porch light, I left one on. I watched her go. Her gait slower than I remembered, her shoulders heavier. When she was gone, I untied the twine and opened the lid. Inside was a pale blue ribbon, frayed at the ends. The same ribbon Seraphine had mocked when I was 19, calling it farm girl chic the day I wore it in my hair to a university award ceremony. I had hidden it in the back of a drawer after that. Eventually, I thought I'd thrown it away. Beneath the ribbon was a folded note. It wasn't long. You always carried more than they gave you credit for. You still do. See, I didn't cry. I didn't even blink long. And I just stood, walked inside, and placed the ribbon in a small cedar box in my bedroom, one labeled in Sharpie years ago. Things I carried but don't anymore. Back outside, the air had cooled. Ava sat cross-legged on the floor cushion. Do you feel better? She asked. I thought about it. No, I answered, but I feel finished. And sometimes that's the closest thing to peace.